Welcome to the Pool Operators Club podcast, where we dive deeper into the pool topics you want to hear. We're here to support all commercial pool operators, large and small. If there's a topic or issue you would like us to address in the future, then please email us at contact@pooloperators.club. Welcome to episode 3, Swimming in Danger, Chemicals and Gassing Incidents in Swimming Pools. My name's Andrew Gaffey.
My name's Martin Hardy.
Really pleased to be with you today, and we're going to cover in a little bit of depth the chemical and gassing incidents that have occurred in swimming pools over the last few years. It's clear from data that we've analysed, and a particularly good source for the data is the Water Incident Research Hub, and we'd like to give them a shout out really for collating some of this data that really demonstrates to us that in commercial pools during the years 2018 to 2020, there were about 21 incidents of chlorine gas or chemical spillage, serious spillage incidents. But yet the following 3 years, 2021 to 2023, saw an increase of 62% up to 35 incidents. So it's a little bit more than a blip in the number of incidents. So we wanted to spend a bit of time today just to look at this and what are some of the reasons for it and the causes. And also to introduce to you at the end that we've put together a new course to try to educate pool operators into looking for and be able to identify the risks that are often overlooked in these circumstances. So we'll get to that a little bit later on. But yeah, Martin, today really wanted to kick off first of all with perhaps what's the definition or explanation of a chemical or gassing accident in swimming pools.
I'll get onto that in a minute. I think the critical thing in terms of the stats that you just produced, Andy, is that there's obviously a great significance there in relation to COVID. We've seen a dramatic increase in these incidents since COVID, which can be down to a lot of factors. There was a high turnover of staff, for instance, in the leisure industry and the pool industry in particular during COVID.
Indeed.
And questions need to be asked in terms of new staff being recruited and the education and training around those new staff. And I think we'll touch on that a bit later. But in terms of definition and explanation, what constitutes a chemical accident in a swimming pool, it can be really anything from a minor spillage up to a situation where chlorine gas is generated inside the plant room pipework, for instance, when the dosing system fails. As we both know, if you've got a dry line during a backwash process or something like that, and your auto doser technically hasn't been isolated or shut off, then that dosing system will continue to dose alkalines and acids into your pipes.
Indeed.
And we're generating chlorine gas in the pipe itself. It could also be an uncontrolled spillage. That could be due to a tank rupture or a pipe rupture or something like that. And operators might not even have noticed this incident has taken place either. So all those kind of things constitute what a chemical accident is in a swimming pool.
I suppose if it's a spillage of chemicals that can't be safely or quickly cleaned up, then that could constitute an accident, couldn't it, really? If it's something that's difficult to deal with, it doesn't have to be a large amount of chemical either. We've seen it in the past where even small spillages on a dirty plant room floor or a greasy, oily plant room floor can cause enough fumes to get somebody into trouble. Yeah,
the basic rule there is that chlorine's going to react with dirt or ingrained oil. There's always a reaction as far as chlorine is concerned anyway, especially when it's mixing with other chemicals or other products.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to cover as well is what are some of the most common examples or mechanisms for these chemical accidents. One of them could be equipment problems, couldn't it, for example?
Yeah, inadvertent overdosing of the chemicals. The pool controller might have malfunctioned and it could cause a high concentration of chlorine to be released into the tank. And basically speaking, that's going to cause huge problems in terms of the bathers in the pool.
Yeah, I've seen things like that. Equipment has caused numerous accidents. In my experience, when I was an engineer, one of the common ones was the chlorine pump had broken down. This is a bit of a different angle. The chlorine pump had broken down. Nobody had been down in the plant room or done a water test for hours. The pool's been really busy. Basically, it's gone to zero chlorine. And it's even got to a point where the water clarity is really starting to fail.
Yeah.
And then the operators noticed that and they've put the pump on. They've gone and fixed the pump problem, reprimed their chemical dosing pump, and then they've been banging chlorine in at full pelt for an hour or so to try and get the chlorine level back up. And it's caused like a massive production of combined chlorine.
Yeah.
Severe enough to cause breathing difficulties in bathers.
Yeah.
So that's another slightly different angle, but it's classed as a chemical or a gassing incident, really.
Yeah.
They've let the water deteriorate to such a level that when you start to put chlorine in, you get terrible byproduct production.
Yeah. There's that element of training in that as well, Andy, isn't there? In terms of staff being able to identify what the issues could be.
Yeah.
So rather than having a knee-jerk reaction to low chlorine levels, it's everything else from the chemistry perspective that might be going on in your pool.
That's right. Yeah.
And that makes a huge contribution in relation to how you're going to react to that situation.
Yeah, exactly. Because normally in a situation like that, you'd identify that there's zero chlorine. Really, you would want to clear that pool, wouldn't you, before?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, the be all and end all. We preach that in our courses, as we do, being tutors.
If you're tempted to try and cover up a situation like that and just think, oh, I'll just put the pump back on, then that's where you get into trouble.
Yeah, that's right. And we move on then to like poor practices. These chemicals coming in, being delivered, and technically being accepted by untrained staff. Delivery notes, product labelling not being carefully checked, transfer of chemicals into wrong storage locations.
Yes.
And the other issue that we've got is that a lot of these chemicals now are delivered in identical looking containers.
Yeah, I've noticed that because for years and years before COVID, lots of chemical manufacturers did use, or they always supplied their chemicals in the same coloured vessel. So if you always had blue ones, it was always blue and it was always black for sodium hypo or something like that.
Yeah.
And then COVID came along and there was a massive shortage of containers.
Yeah.
And lots of manufacturers using the same colour container for acids, hypochlorites. So look at the label because the container looks identical.
Yeah. The other major issue that we had at that particular time was due to the lack of chlorine in particular, is a lot of facility operators actually trying to source these chemicals online. Yeah. So they were buying from what we would call not approved suppliers and sources, and that was creating problems as well.
Yeah, there was a big scramble, wasn't there, for any chlorine anywhere to try and keep the facility open. And we did begin to wonder, didn't we, how far is this going to go before something really bad happens? Are these products being supplied with data sheets properly? Are they intended for the pool industry even?
Yeah.
Are they stronger or weaker than the ones normally supplied? So all these issues became relevant.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to do, to try and relay to people and to operators, what are the dangers of chlorine gas and what damage can it do to you? Because we hear about these accidents, but we never get to hear much detail from the health and safety executive about some of the consequences of these accidents. But it's just to relay how dangerous chlorine gas is and what damage it can do to you as a person.
Yeah, but the first thing it's going to affect is your lungs. You're breathing in the fumes.
Yep.
So, chlorine gas reacts with mucus in the lungs to produce hydrochloric acid, which then causes rapid inflammation and damage to the lungs, causing the lungs to fill with fluid, basically leading to drowning.
In a nutshell, I think that's a good description, that it's not the toxicity of the gas as such, it's the reaction of the lungs.
Correct.
And basically, yes, your lungs fill up with liquid and you drown. And this can be sometimes quite a delayed reaction. It doesn't always happen in the first few minutes. It could happen hours later in hospital.
Well, it's a short term or long term, isn't it?
Everybody's different. And that's why they always want to get you to hospital if you've inhaled chlorine gas, because they want to try and assess how your lungs are reacting to that inflammation.
Yeah.
But and then you've got the longer term effects as well. It can cause chronic, really bad respiratory issues, long-term skin irritation, sometimes eye damage, and especially it has an eye impact on children, the elderly, individuals with respiratory conditions, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And they're at particular risk of developing quite serious complications long-term. So it was just to really try and highlight the risks in chlorine, and you don't get many second chances. You only need one or two lungfuls of this stuff, and it can be severely debilitating.
Yeah.
To a point that if you are on your own in a plant room and you walk into a volume of chlorine gas and you breathe that in, sometimes it may not be possible for you to get out of that building or summon help. And so it's just to be aware that this is serious stuff and it's not to be taken lightly. And this increase in accidents and incidents, it seemed for a while in 2023 that we were getting it's almost like an accident every week coming on the news, wasn't it, for a period of time. And you begin to think, what's the common denominator here? So again, from the Water Incident Research Hub, They've got some quite interesting data there, and you can look up some of the incidents that have occurred each year just to see a summary, really, of the causes and effects. And for example, one we've got here is a centre in Haywards Heath in June 2022. They had a chlorine gas leak due to accidental mixing of hydrochloric acid with sodium hypochlorite. So it's a pretty bad situation. Over 50 people affected, including 6 taken to hospital with respiratory issues. And in the end, the cause of that was due to human error during chemical handling and a lack of adequate training.
Yeah, as we said earlier on, there's a major education and training issue here. And the prime example of these incidents, I think that a lot of people will be aware of because it hit national newspapers, was the Olympic Park.
Yeah.
And the major gas incident at the London Aquatic Centre.
Yeah, that was
29 people taken to hospital with breathing problems, and a major incident was declared following a gas leak. 200 people were evacuated from the building or the venue at the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, and almost 50 people were treated by paramedics for breathing difficulties. Common causes that have been identified so far, and I think it's still an ongoing case.
Yeah, I think the legal guys are still
they're
still working on that one.
But common causes that were identified were mismanagement of chemicals, equipment failures, and inadequate staff training and safety protocols in place.
Yeah.
So we've got a theme here.
We have got a theme, and there's several others like that. And some of the incidents, there's a couple of reasons, and commonly one of them is down to competency and training, really.
Yeah.
So maybe during that COVID period, there was a high turnover of staff in some of these places.
I think that's
training.
I think I mentioned earlier, it's a well-known fact.
Yeah.
High turnover of staff.
And training wasn't easy to get, was it? You had to do it online, which is it's never as good as in person, is it?
No. I think we're fully aware that a face-to-face course is far more valuable than an online.
There was one at the waterfront in Greenock in 2021. There's chlorine gas release caused by malfunction in the pool's chemical dosing system. This can be an interesting one as well, because it's the type of incident that sometimes is not detected if you're in the plant room. So I think you mentioned, Martin, where you get inadvertent mixing in the pipework.
Yeah.
And that can be due to the chemical dosing system not stopping dosing when the circulation pumps fail. They should, and there should be some safety systems in place to ensure that happens. There should be like a double flow switch installation to detect the loss of flow in the pool and shut down the system. So there's obviously something gone wrong there. And these incidents happen a lot because operators are not quite educated in this particular fault, and that is that they'll walk into the plant room, the circulation pump has failed, they can't really find a reason it's failed, it's not tripped, apart from maybe a minor trip electrically or something like that. They switch it back on, it all seems to work. Meanwhile, the chemical dosing pumps were still dosing.
Yeah.
And they've just pushed all that gas, all the reaction
back into the pool,
and they're in the plant room and they have no idea that they've just done that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the first people to find out are the bathers. So that's another angle, one that can be quite serious as well. It can affect a lot of people very quickly. And then what tends to happen in that scenario, because it's gone into the pool hall, often it gets dispersed around the building. It gets into the air conditioning,
ventilation shafts.
And before you know it, you can have fumes, chlorine gas throughout the whole building if you're not careful.
Yeah.
So that's another area to touch on. There's quite a few reasons, quite a few cause and effects of these types of incidents. And I think last year we decided to start work, didn't we, on a new presentation?
Yep.
To help pool operators, and we've called it Chemical Safety for Commercial Pool Operators. And we've done this to try and analyse and highlight some of the causes of these accidents and some of the risk assessments you can do to try and identify and eliminate these risks in your particular pool. And quite a few of them are ones that are commonly missed in the industry. We've put together, I think it's three-part presentation.
Three-part presentation.
Yeah. Where we're going to cover health and safety in the plant room, the handling and transfer of chemicals, I think, was in there as well.
Yeah.
You did a presentation covering a lot of the regulatory aspects of operating with and handling chemicals as well.
Yeah, and we got Robbie Phillips involved in that as well. Thanks to Robbie for having some input onto that as well.
Yeah. So if you're a member of the Pool Operators Club, that presentation is available to you in your annual subscription, no extra cost for that. And we hope you find that that's a useful tool to help you with your pool operations, chemical handling. And it could even make a good induction tool, I think, wouldn't it, as well?
If you've got new staff coming onto the premises, you need to make sure that you've got rigid induction processes in place as well. The be-all and end-all of that is that you're dealing with, in a lot of cases in our plant rooms, incompatible chemicals. But the major task is identification of those products.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being very thorough with the acceptance of those deliveries, isn't it?
Yeah.
The labelling. Don't just assume that just because it looks the same, it is the same. I've seen so many accidents, errors with documentation and stuff like that.
And it is, to the naked eye, it's quite difficult. Because for pH correction, we could be dealing with a granular product.
Yeah.
And from a chlorine perspective, we could be dealing with a granular product as well.
That's right.
So they basically, they look very, very similar.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you haven't got lids on particular containers in your plant room, and somebody's wandering around with their little magic blue scoops, as we all know they do, it's quite easily to dip those scoops into the wrong tub, put it into the day tank, it's the wrong one, and before you know it, you're dealing with a phone call and the fire brigade are there and the building's been evacuated.
Yeah, it's pretty serious. And these accidents do put the reputation of the industry at risk. And I found on my phone this morning, it's amazing, I signed up to some chemical accident alerts and things like that for the leisure industry. And there was an incident on Google this morning, which was a new £200 million water park facility in Texas. On its opening day, one of the contractors, it sounded like it was one of the construction workers, was tasked with filling up a chemical tank, and it sounds like he's put acid into a chlorine tank. And people have been taken to hospital, the park's been evacuated.
Yeah.
And of course, the operator has made the statement that customer safety is the highest priority. If that can happen on day one, that's not a very convincing statement, is it?
I mean, again, harping on it, but it's an education process. I mean, we're dealing with the state in terms of that example.
Yeah.
But the key thing is we're obviously delivering courses for Safety Training Awards, the STA. We've got 2 level 2s and we've got a level 3 course as well as far as the full PPO is concerned. Yeah. And to even get somebody on the 1-day level 2s or the half-day water testing course or something like that, it's just investing in people and investing in your staff. And the chemicals that we're using are lethal products.
They are.
And we need to have a well-educated, trained staff operating our swimming pools.
And I appreciate for new staff, organisations taking on new staff, it's not easy to get these people trained up, especially if they've not got any background in plant operation or technical operation of pools. Me and you both, in the past as well, we've advocated doing hands-on practical training. And as far as I go as well, I often say that to new candidates for pool plant operators courses, look, if you've got no prior or very minimal prior experience with pools, then sometimes it's better to get just 1 day or even half a day of a practical tour around your plant room so that you can have the basic systems explained to you so that when you do start the pool plant operators course, you've already got a bit of a picture of what it's all about, and the information is a lot easier to absorb.
Yeah.
So we'd always recommend that as well with brand new people.
Our level 3 operators, as you know, are technically competent enough to train staff anyway. So if you're in a situation whereby you can't get a course for a few months and you've got new staff on board, if you've got a level 3 qualified operator on the premises, they are technically competent enough to show those people how to do it. Just obviously make sure that you name them, get it on a sheet, get them to sign that they've been shown how to do it and all this kind of thing. It's a short-term measure, but if that's part of the induction process, and, until you can get somebody suitably qualified and get them on a course and booked on, then that is better than nothing.
Absolutely, it is. If you're a POC member, you can get access to that chemical safety for commercial pool operators free of charge, 3-part training online. And we've got some support documents that go with it that can help you with your risk assessments and also check the functioning and the provision of safety devices and interlocks in the plant room as well. It gives some advice on what you should do in the event of circulation pump failures and things like that. There's a checklist there for you to work through that will help to improve the safety of your operation as well. So we hope you find that useful. We look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. And for the time being, thanks. It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Be safe.
If you found this content helpful, please help us by clicking the like button below and subscribing to the channel. Thank you.